And the first place in UK we came to was Leeds, and it was a huge culture change for me. From being out in the open in a village stroke rural life to seeing life in an urban setting, which, as I say, it was a big change. But at the time, I didn't have any sort of feelings either way. Where I would ideally want to be, because obviously I was with my parents, and my mother got admitted to a hospital straight away, and I stayed with my father for the next few years. In the meantime, we moved out of Leeds into Bradford, and I attended a junior school there, followed by what used to be called a junior high. Moved out of Bradford into Glasgow. That was back in 1968. Again, by that time, I was more au fait with the conditions, the lifestyles within UK a bit more. And moving over to Glasgow, again, that was a bit different. I very quickly picked up the Scottish accent. In fact, when I returned from Glasgow a short while later, it was clearly back in Yorkshire, they could tell I had a Scottish influence in the way I spoke. Mm-hmm. So anyway, in Scotland I attended a school, a secondary school for a period of a year, and my actual qualifications, were obtained when I returned back to Bradford. So I got my GCSEs, followed by GCEs, followed by A-levels, and I moved out. In terms of, what sort of things I got involved with, ordinary things, during my schooling days, you're at school from 9 till 4, till 3:30, whatever the time was, followed by, I had to attend. And the only masjid from our home at the time was about 2 miles away. So it was a case of making sure you got onto the bus, went to the masjid, and back home. So a day for me, from the age of, I suppose, 10, 11 onwards, was quite a long day. Mm-hmm. So anyway, going back to secondary education in Bradford, I got my A-levels there, in subjects like mathematics, physics, further mathematics, and ended up attending a university in Birmingham, University of Aston in Birmingham, where I graduated in computer science and physics, joint honours degree. In fact, from the village I come from, I'm the second person who graduated in UK. There was another one. He was from Nottingham, I think now lives in Bury. After my graduation in 1977, I went on to do a master's degree, again at the same academic institution, University of Aston, and I got my MSc in analytical physics, and the research project I did was in nuclear reactors. It was just a research project, nothing more. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't actually work at a reactor or anything. Mm-hmm. Now, once I left the university in 1978, my first job in the United Kingdom was working for Rolls-Royce in Bristol. Now, due to family circumstances, I could not settle in Bristol. In 1978, my mother and father were back in Pakistan at the time. Okay. So anyway, they did return, and this time they brought over to United Kingdom my wife. So, and they sort of settled in Bradford. There's me working in Bristol, and they're there in Bradford, and at weekends I used to travel on Fridays to Bradford, back to Bristol on Sundays. So travelling was pretty hectic. Mm-hmm. So in the end, I came to the conclusion I need to be somewhere near Bradford. So Rolls-Royce, the factory that I was working for, I spoke to the HR manager there, and I said, this is the situation. And in those days, I tell you, the working conditions, terms and conditions were absolutely fantastic in this country. Mm-hmm. They were very, very good. Well, compared with today, mm-hmm. they were very good. I know there's lots of legislation that went against us at the time, but it all depends on what you personally go through. But mm-hmm. I personally had a very comfortable, plain sailing in that respect. So anyway, I asked, is there any way I could continue to work for Rolls-Royce and not work at Bristol? They said, no, not a problem. always have vacancies in Derby. Derby is not too far away from Bradford. So that's how my transfer to Derby took place in 1979.
Yeah.
And this is where everything kind of starts, yeah, in terms of my involvement with the community, with various projects, with what I was able to achieve on behalf of the community, etc. Up until, as I say, age of 25, it was sort of community, United Kingdom, schooling and education. That's all it was.
Nice.
And once I got to Derby, there were people here that I actually knew from our village back home, and there's other people I got to know. And what I saw, what my first impression of Derby at the time was, it is lacking. It is lacking all the facilities. As Muslims, we didn't have anywhere to pray. I think the only place we could go to was a house on Darius Road, number 54. And with our growing population at the time, that was certainly not sufficient. Yeah. So anyway, what the community decided at the time is we put resources together, we put funds together, and we'll identify a site, and build a purpose-built mosque. And a committee was put together, yeah, and that was again, all the. In fact, if you talk about the factions within the community, the groupings within the community, they actually backdate to even sort of 70s, maybe even before that.
Right.
So anyway, there were a couple of groups. There was a dominant group who wanted a masjid in the area we lived, because they could actually see that one day our children will want to go to the masjid after school, so it better be in a location which is easily accessible. Yeah, we don't want a masjid far away, so 2 miles away. What would the mothers do, the young mums do with the sort of toddlers, etc.? What would they do? How would they? Because at the time we were not so well off, financially. Maybe our housing wasn't, to a very high standard. We didn't have adequate transport. In terms of the facilities that we need, we didn't have, because we were, if you want to know the truth, we were economic migrants into United. I mean, my father's generation came to United Kingdom because they were economic migrants. If we were well off with Pakistan, we would have left. So anyway, here, at that time, our decision was to build a masjid in an area that we lived. And we predominantly, Pakistanis and Muslims, predominantly lived in, and the reasons are very clear as to why, we lived in more inner city areas.
Yes.
Inner city areas close to railway stations. We didn't have any cars. We would use transport, public transport, trains, we would use buses, and rest of the time we would travel on foot. You see, so if we were kind of settled in Duffield, Allestree, and make our journeys into sort of by public transport from Derby city centre, it wouldn't be feasible.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, whichever town, whether it's Bradford or Birmingham or Bristol or Derby, we were almost sort of not too far away from these locations.